and welcome to Reliving My Youth. My name is Noel Fogelman. My guest this week is Corey Johnson. The character actor is probably best known for his roles in The Mummy, Captain Phillips, Hellboy, I still think Agent Clay's alive, and United 93. We discuss United 93 and just how accurate it is because they spoke to the passengers' families and just tried to get an accurate description of the events of that day, closely as they could. Very powerful movie. We also discuss his role as Henry Van Statten, the owner of the internet, in his episode of Doctor Who. We discuss working with Brendan Fraser in The Mummy, as well as the canceled Batgirl movie that Corey had a role in. We discussed that. Also discuss his role as Donald Trump in the British comedy The Windsors. He lives in England right now, so American born. So he gets asked about what the hell is going on in this country. So Corey provides his 2 cents about what's going on. Really enjoyed my conversation with Corey, and I hope you do as well. So Corey, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So before we look back, let's just talk about what's coming up for you. Digger, starting Tom Cruise. Can you talk about what that movie is about and when it comes out?
I would love to. I honest to God have no idea what it's about. This is one of the most it was quite heavily guarded, and the script was changing all the time. But when I was looking at the trailer, they have a trailer now that they posted online.
Yeah.
And there was sort of someone, dancing in shadows, and then a shovel came out, and I went, shovel, what is that? And I saw something about from the director of Birdman, and I went, oh. And I'm such an idiot. I went, oh, Alejandro must have done another movie before he did. And I went, oh, no, this is my movie, and I realized, because we were calling it a different thing.
Right.
And that was like a working title. And then it came out Digger. And I see the last frame of the trailer says a comedy of catastrophic proportions. And I just went, yeah, that's definitely our movie. Because right. I remember stuff going on, and I can't say anything about it. Stuff going on when I literally, there was a point when I would go, yeah, that's just ridiculous. And then I found that I was the one sort of leading the charge on that ridiculous thing. And then they'd say something along the lines of, okay, and at this point, a dinosaur will give birth. And you go, and you just accept it. Okay. And you think, what is going on? Honestly, what's going on here? And so I would love to tell you what it's about. Honest to God, I just think it's going to be one of those things you're going to have to witness and let it just pour over you.
Right.
It'll have a rational, logical storyline, but I honestly couldn't tell you what it was because there were literally 6 things going on at the same time.
Right. All right. Yeah. I look forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be a trip.
Right. I mean, with Tom Cruise, very, obviously serious and like an action star. And then when he did Tropic Thunder, you saw that totally other side of him.
Yeah, I think there's a kind of an assumption people make about movie actors of a certain type that, like, oh, Christian Bale can't be funny, or we can't take Tom Hanks seriously, or stuff like that. And you go, these guys are serious actors because they're serious about their craft, and it just shows you playing the truth of a situation will either be heartbreaking, tragic, or immensely funny. And I think the one thing that they all have in common is that's the reason they're where they are, is that they play in all seriousness the truth of a situation. They don't impose their will on it. They don't say, oh, I'm Tom Hanks, I'm Tom Cruise, I'm Christian Bale, I'm going to do it like this. They do what the scene requires. And then it's like Tom Hanks said this. He said, you show up on time and you have an idea. And that was, he said, some of the best advice he ever got was a director yelling at a group of actors. And he says, all you have to do is show up on time, know your lines, have an idea. And he never forgot that. And it's like, you have an idea. And if you're faithful to your craft and faithful to the story, the idea is going to flesh out what's already there instead of imposing your will on top of it.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. Yeah, you look at like Leslie Nielsen, right, who's a real serious actor for like Airplane, The Naked Gun,
Totally,
and then all of a
totally,
sudden he was
totally.
every role he did was comedic.
Right. And but why you look at something like Airplane and you go, Robert Stack in the same movie
Yeah,
never did any. If you look at Robert Stack in Airplane and take the audio away, and you look at Robert Stack in The Untouchables, you'll
right.
see the same acting going on.
Yeah,
He wasn't playing something. Lloyd Bridges, all these really serious actors,
yeah.
they didn't do anything to be funny.
No,
They just did who they were, what people expected them to be in a situation that was so bizarre and so obtuse that it was humorous. And that's, brilliant.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It also takes enormous stones to risk that at the late stage in your career when you
yeah,
go, I've built a reputation being this guy, and now I am going to take that reputation and put it against a target for people to lampoon. And he said that's very risky. And if you don't have the substance underneath, it'll just work out badly for you.
yeah,
But all of those actors were, like you said, really serious actors, you know. George Kennedy in I was
yeah,
watching The Naked Gun last night,
yeah,
God.
yeah. Amazing movie. Yeah, and
But
like,
those guys, George Kennedy is an Oscar winner,
yeah,
you know?
right.
It's amazing. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
and I believe he kind of like fought for that role too. He like
Mm.
really, really wanted to be in that movie. So
And
it's
I think, again, it's something about I would see it today where an actor with 1.5 million Twitter followers sort of goes up, oh no, I need to be in that movie because it'll enhance my base or it'll grow my base.
yeah,
I don't think anything drove any of those guys because these are guys who learned in the 40s and the 50s. They were with the group theater, they were with Strasberg. They had a real integrity to their acting that was unimpeachable. Even if they weren't as good as Brando or Dean, that integrity that infused what they did coming from the group or coming from Strasberg or Sanford Meisner, all these great teachers, Uta Hagen, um, it infused their choices. And I think when they did something like that, they weren't making a calculated judgment about whether or not their audience was. They were going, "This is something that I feel I can do, and it's going to be a choice that is out there." And I think that's what drove them.
yeah. What drove you to acting?
I was too lazy. I couldn't do anything else. No, I I was playing football when I was 15. And I was looking forward to this is such an involved story. It's like I don't even begin to answer the question. I could give you a 2-word answer, and I'm not.
Right.
Um, I was playing football when I was 15. I was looking forward to getting my driving license at 16 and being able to drive. And on Friday the 13th, I got hit and sort of damaged my knee.
Huh.
And I was in a hip to ankle cast and wasn't going to get my driver's license, feeling really miserable myself. And I was so pissed off because I had to go and play in the orchestra for the school musical. And I was like, this is the last thing I want to be doing. But I was watching the, musical, and I remember looking at a guy. The guy is actually a brilliant writer now. And I went, I could do what he's doing. Why is he doing it like that? He could just be really natural and
Right.
just do it. And I found there was a woman who had been a director when I was in sort of grade school, 12, 13, and she left the school. And then 3 years later, she was coming back, and I knew she was coming back. And I found her and I saw her and I went, I'm going to audition for you next year. I'm going to be in your plays. And she looked at me and she went, okay, and walked away like, who is this? And I stood there and I went, that worked. That worked really well.
Right.
And I completely forgot about it. And then I was taking a drama class from her, and we were reading Jason and Medea. I think it's Aeschylus or something like that, some Greek. And I just remember reading this and going, I know exactly how to say this. There's a way of saying it that makes it make sense.
Right.
And I just got, I said, I don't know if I was ever bitten by the bug. I never was blindly going into it, but I just felt like I knew how to do it. And I did it. And, that was an important thing because you go through a lot of paths. You work with actors, you work with directors, you work in class, you go to school. And the important thing to never ever forget is there's a reason you did it in the first place. And there's an instinct, an intuition that you had that drove you to it in the first place. And it's like the Jack Palance line in City Slickers is one thing, one thing. What is it? That's for you to find out. Everyone's got their own reason for doing it. You never ever lose that basic primal reason, because if you do, you're lost.
Right.
You know, you'll just be doing something. You go, I don't know why I'm getting up in the morning. I know exactly why I'm getting up in the morning.
Yeah.
I mean, I joke about it when I do a voiceover. People say, this must get really boring for you. And I go, I'm sitting in a dark room alone, listening to the sound of my own voice. This is heaven. You have no idea. You know,
Yeah.
I could do this all day, and sometimes I do.
Exactly. You know, without makeup, without getting dressed, you can go in shorts and sandals, and it's.
But it's just. But the thing about it is you go. You know, you sit there and you listen, and you're saying something. I mean, when I do voiceovers, it's not like I put on the voice of God. But
Right.
my dad was a broadcast journalist in New Orleans. And I grew up hearing him talk to me and saying whatever he did. And then he would go on television and he would say, there's something going on in our society right now, and we need to address it. And it was never like there was something going on. It wasn't like one of those 1940s voices.
Yeah.
He had a lot of gravitas. He had a lot of seriousness. He could also puncture his own balloon really easily without changing the tone, exactly like Leslie Nielsen. You know, he knew what he was doing and he knew how to do it. And I was lucky enough to have grown up hearing that. And so when I went to do documentaries and voiceovers, I kept my own voice and just eased into that kind of, I'm going to give you information now. And this information is important. And you need to hear every consonant of what I'm saying. Yeah. And so that informed what I did. And it made how I did it much easier, I think, than it would have otherwise.
Right.
You know, my learning curve, I was already there instead of having to learn how to do it.
Right. So did you take that and kind of times it by 1,000 when you did Midnight Caller?
As a matter of fact, I didn't even have to times it by 1,000. It was there. I just accessed it. You know, I let that inform my choices as opposed to letting my choices inform that.
Right.
You know, I want to, because there's a difference between Dave off camera, and this was hard, and this is where Adam was really kind of brilliant with this, because we both understood this character intuitively. He wrote him, so you know there's an element of Adam that's in this man, but at the same time he knew intuitively. He said there's a difference between the way he presents himself in front of the mic and the way he presents himself to people.
Right.
And we've got to see that difference. When he's being sarcastic as Dave, he's throwing it away. It's like he's too tired to be funny. He's too tired to care. Huh. When he gets on camera, he's got that presentational thing, and he's Dave. And he knows that when he goes up and down, it's going to work for the audience.
Yeah.
When he's talking to somebody else, he just sits there and he says, look, I can't even be, I don't have the time or the crayons to explain this to you, you know, and you just go, I understand that. He's not saying I don't have the time or the crayon, you know, he just says, and so there was a difference between Dave, the mic person, and Dave, the real person. And he quite brilliantly would hit me on that every once in a while. He'd say, okay, this is Dave, the mic. It's what you said. This is Dave times 1,000. Yeah. Now we're back to normal Dave, you know, and I would go, okay, great. You know, and we would modulate it like that, which was kind of great. It was a shorthand we had to just go to a different level of persona.
Right. Because you first saw, without giving too much away of the movie, because everyone go see it. It's fantastic. You saw Dave, the normal Dave, before you saw the, you know, professional Dave in the beginning of the movie. And then dealing with his wife. And then when you saw the professional Dave off mic was when you were dealing with your coworker with the issue you had with her.
Exactly.
Right. And then the ending came out of nowhere. Yeah. I didn't expect that ending at all.
Did you see it on Apple or streaming or
it's
Amazon?
It's on Tubi now.
Tubi. Okay, right, great. So Midnight Caller on Tubi, folks.
Yeah, everyone check it out. It's just under 90 minutes. It is fantastic, and it's just very powerful.
I'm glad you saw that. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've done so many movies based on true life events.
A few, yeah.
A few. Probably one of the first I saw regarding that with you that I actually recognized that because you were in once before that was United 93.
Right.
And I had Greg Henry on a last
Mm,
year.
mm,
Love Greg, and he was in it. He played
yeah.
one of the
Yes.
admirals in the movie. Just talk about just when you're making that and how like close to like just doing like Saving Private Ryan and Black Hawk Down movies that
Right. Right.
you know
Right.
time has passed a lot, but with United 93, you guys did it, I believe, like 3 or 4 years after the movie came or the events of 9/11.
We were doing it in just a little more than 4 years after it happened. We filmed it in the fall of 2005, and I remember we shot it in. So we were rehearsing in October. We shot it in November into December in about 6 weeks, and in January they released a trailer that was about 30 seconds long. That was a radar screen with a blip going on it, a blip, and you heard the Cleveland Tower. It wasn't even about our movie. It was Cleveland Tower saying, United 93, this is Cleveland Tower, do you read? United 93, this is Cleveland Tower, do you read? United Niners 3, this is Cleveland Tower, do you read? And then it disappeared. And you still hear the voiceover going, I don't have him. United, and the thing comes up on the screen on September 11th, 4 planes attacked the United States, 3 hit their targets, 1 did not, or 3 hit their targets. This is the story of the 4th. And then it comes up United
Yeah.
93. People were shouting at the screen, too soon, and there was a real boo, too
Yeah.
soon, and it was like, wow. And I think probably, look, justifiably so or not, people felt like literally that Hollywood was going to capitalize on this movie. But they had no idea about what Paul was going to bring to it.
Right.
Paul meticulously went to every family member and got approval to do this movie that he explained to them what he wanted to do. He said, I don't know what happened. We're going to try and discover an idea of what happened. We're not going to make them out to be superhuman or heroes. We're going to tell the story of what happened
Right.
and let that fall. And the brave thing he did was he made the hijackers human. He didn't make them, they weren't red with horns and tails.
Right.
He tried to make them as human as possible, doing an inhuman thing. And then the people on the plane were normal people doing a superhuman thing. There's no other way to describe what they did.
Right.
Somebody described, and I'm not comparing these at all, but it's the best way to say it. They described Charles Lawton's performance as King Lear as if you were watching an ordinary man called to crucifixion, and you just go, when the punishment so far outweighs the crime.
Right.
Whatever it was these people did to deserve to be on that plane, it was beyond unfair. And yet they did something that was so utterly unselfish in that moment, in the face of, certain death.
Right.
That you just can't begin to fathom what drove them. And it's because we have the luxury of time and space to be able to think about it. They didn't think, they just did.
Right.
They didn't have any choice. They just did. And there's something, I hate saying, I used to really get torn up about it, because the more I would think about it, the more I would realize there's something really beautiful about what happened. Because when you can look away and you look off of it and you see it and you go, this is the most extraordinary thing. It's just when you disassociate yourself from the event,
Yeah.
you look at what's going on, you say, this is the most extraordinary expression of humanity. The same book talking about Charles Lawton's Lear said it was like hearing humanity's last best defense of itself. And I think United 93 is literally our last best defense of ourself in the last extreme. people always say this, oh, we're going to resort to looting, we're going to do this. No, those people did something that defies understanding, you know? And all we can do as actors is come close to approximating what they did. But the whole of what they did, the entirety of what they did, defies belief. It's just an incredible thing. And the only way to understand it is to say, this is what humanity is. This is what we are, you know? And it's beautiful in that sense.
Yeah. And we're approaching the 25th anniversary already of the events of that day, which is unreal that
It is unreal.
25 years already. And it's also the
Yeah.
last time that the country was united as one, I feel.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
25 years
Yeah.
later, we cannot be further apart.
No.
I mean, I know you are overseas, so can
Yeah.
you just talk about kind of just observing America from overseas of all what the shit that's going on now?
It used to be sort of seasonal, and then it was monthly, and now literally it is every week, if not more, where someone will open a conversation with me and say, what the hell is going on with your country?
Right.
And I literally just go, you've gotta give it time, because it won't last.
No.
It won't last. The greatest thing about America and American democracy is that the more it goes this way, it's not a pendulum. It doesn't swing this way and then swing crashing back the other way. It swings this way and then it slowly adjusts.
Yeah.
And it'll adjust, and it may react in the opposite direction briefly. I mean, the only way to explain Jimmy Carter being elected president is Watergate.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was running against Gerald Ford, who had no intention of ever being vice president, much less president.
Right.
And he was an average candidate, and Jimmy Carter was the anti-Republican, the anti-Nixon.
Yeah.
And so he was that. We like having strong conservative presidents. I think you look at the reason Bill Clinton was elected president was that there was another Republican running in the same race, who literally siphoned 15 or 20% of moderate Republican, moderate conservative votes, or far right conservative votes from what would have been the Republican nominee. And so Bill Clinton won the first election in 92 with 43% of the vote. He won the second election in 96, again with three candidates running, with 48% of the vote.
Yeah, Ross
So
Perot.
he was a minority president, and Congress held that against him.
Yeah.
You know, when Reagan was elected, he went to Tip O'Neill and said, listen, you've got Congress. I'm not denying that, but I got a mandate. I had almost 60% of the people voting for me. You've got to work with me so I can give them what they're asking you to give them. And Tip O'Neill really wisely said, you're right. Okay, I'll work with you. I'll work with you to give you the things you want. And Reagan didn't ask for the moon. He said, these are certain. They want less government. They want lower taxes, blah, blah, blah. Reagan got reelected in 84, and in 85, they literally raised the taxes. But not, they couldn't say we're raising taxes.
Yeah, of course.
They had to couch it in a way. But
Yeah.
because Reagan said, and Reagan knew, and Tip O'Neill knew, he said, all bets are off now. I know you got a mandate again, but they're not voting for you. They're voting against this guy, and we've got a responsibility because you're spending, and at that point, Reagan had spent more money than all the other presidents combined in his 4-year term.
Right.
So, the reaction went the other way, and that was within his presidency. But I think Americans generally like the impression of a strong president. Clinton was a surprise because he wouldn't have otherwise been elected, but Clinton had what he called the third way. He said there's a Democrat or a progressive way, there's a conservative Republican way, and there's a middle ground, there's a moderate way.
Yeah.
And he was trying to do the third way. And a lot of what he did was really good as far as fiscal responsibility, as far as even progressive policies. But when you're a Republican, when you're a conservative, you have to find something wrong, even when everything is working relatively well. Obama getting elected and Mitch McConnell saying our job is to make him a one-term president.
Yeah.
That's not your job,
No.
but you can say that. And then privately to the members, he said, we vote against everything he wants. even if it's something we want,
Right.
which is the definition of stupid. Mitch McConnell is a hero in conservative circles. History is going to judge him much harsher
Yeah.
because we think, oh, he put all these conservative judges on the bench. With very few exceptions, the conservative judges that Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump put on the bench, while some of them have been extreme, most of them have voted with Trump, but they basically upheld the law.
Right.
Okay. Trump is lawless. He doesn't think anything applies to him. And it's great when you run a business. I mean, because if you go bankrupt, you can sort of say, well, they'll bail me out. Who? The government. Yeah, the government. But when you are the government, you can't destroy it because we can't go to Mars and say, can you bail us out here? There's no one else who'll bail us out.
Yeah.
You know? So I think, people say, oh, he's a businessman. Well, he's not a particularly good businessman, but I get what you're saying. He's a businessman. If business and government were the same thing, we'd be run like, AT&T. We're not. Business and government is not the same thing. And to elect a businessman in government, especially a first time running for, an office, is, if it doesn't come down in history as this was a hugely mistaken experiment, I'll be very surprised.
Yeah, I figured after the first term, both sides would have realized this was kind of a turning point to get their shit together.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
It wasn't,
yeah.
but
I know you got it. The Democrats definitely bear some of the blame, but
absolutely.
I think, when you put a gun to someone's head and pull the trigger, you can't blame their brains for getting in the way of the bullet. Do you know?
Right.
So, I mean,
yeah. So how much fun was it playing Trump in the Windsors? You kind of
well, it was nothing but
exaggerated a
fun.
little,
I
but it was
mean,
fun.
well, the first time we did it was sort of at the very beginning of his first term,
Right.
and it was like, okay, this is a joke that's going to take 4 years to tell. It's all right. It'll take us a while.
Yeah.
And then, COVID came in and he was impeached and COVID and he got sick and then he appointed Amy Coney Barrett and you just went, this guy is just doing what he wants to do. And then when he lost, we were like, thank God. And then all that happened, culminating in January 6th. And you thought, finally, we'll be able to put this behind us because look at this detritus that he's leaving in his wake. And he's like a petulant child taking his ball and going home because he lost the game.
Right.
And again, Mitch McConnell could have stood up and said, we need to ensure this doesn't happen again for the sake of our democracy. We need to ensure that this doesn't happen again. And instead he said, I can't tell you how to vote. After he was saying Donald Trump bears responsibility, the number of Republicans who said Donald Trump bears responsibility or a version of that. This can't happen again. The lawlessness must stop. The blah, blah, blah. Lindsey Graham, enough is enough. Count me out. 6 months later, he was back at Mar-a-Lago saying, this may be the greatest person ever to draw breath.
Right.
And, you look at it, Hillary Clinton said, this is a man who can be baited with a tweet. Kamala Harris said, he is telling you what he is going to do. He's going to be a dictator from day one. He is going to put soldiers in the street. It said everything like a playbook. And look out for Project 25 because that's what he's going to do. And here we are in 26. And, Project 2025 was implemented. And you just go, it was obvious what was going to happen. I don't believe people justify it to themselves by saying, that's what I voted for. They justify it because they're going, he says a lot of stuff, but it's what he does that, and he doesn't mean what he says. And it's like, that's what his Teflon is all about.
Yeah.
I don't appear to mean what I say. People look back 10 years ago when he said, I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose any votes. He got the street wrong, but otherwise he's probably right. I remember Sean Hannity saying, if Hillary Clinton is elected president tomorrow, there will be a constitutional crisis in this country, the likes of which we have never seen. He got the name wrong,
right?
But everything else was right.
Yeah.
So for me, that's what the polarization in this country is sort of along those lines. You talk about one thing, and this is Trump to a T. You talk about one thing, and you're actually talking about the other thing. You know, Hannity talking about Hillary, you replace him with Trump, and you've got the truth.
Yeah.
You've got the example truth. Uh, 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 what was the other? Trump demonizing Democrats, far left, radical, evil, Satan.
Yeah.
They're talking about people like Stephen Miller and Greg Bovino and Kirsty Noem.
Yeah.
You know, who I don't believe they're satanic. I believe they're evil only in the sense that their lack of insight, their lack of dispassionate objectivity makes them unable to do their jobs.
Yeah. Well, they're just true loyalists. They have.
Well, yeah, they are.
Yeah.
But there were some people who were really into Trump in the first term who still managed to, stand up and say, no,
Yeah.
we can't do that. Work with him for years, but they were still loyal to the Constitution.
Yeah. Like no one in this administration now is that.
Doesn't seem to be. I can't find anyone who wouldn't praise Trump more than the founding fathers.
Yeah. I mean, they're trying to get his birthday as a federal holiday, put him on money.
Right. Exactly. I think they should. I think they should make his birthday a federal holiday.
Yeah.
I think they should make it a federal holiday in the sense of saying, like, there's the same thing as Lee Harvey Oswald was born on this day. Let's never let this happen again.
Right.
All the mistakes that went on, that led to this guy being in a position to do what he did. Let's never let it happen again.
Yeah.
If that's the federal holiday they're talking about, I'm all for it.
Right. Yeah. Well, the beauty about the MAGA base is they don't vote when he's not on the ballot. So hopefully 3 more years,
right.
They won't vote at all. And it's
but the danger of what he's established, what he's managed to establish in the last 10 years, but particularly in the last 5 or 6 years, is he's setting things up to where he's going to have a revenue stream that is based in him having been president.
Yeah.
And that with any luck is going. I mean, the only good thing about what's going to happen when he leaves is the money's going to leave MAGA. He's not going to leave the money with MAGA. No. He doesn't believe, as much as he says, oh, MAGA is me, I'm MAGA. MAGA's not going to last. It's going to be an afterthought after he leaves.
Yeah.
But the danger is things like Truth Social are going to stay.
Right.
Truth Social is the most inappropriately named thing I've ever heard of in my life.
Right.
Because there's nothing particularly social about it, and it certainly has no obligation to the truth.
No. So
in a way, I look at and the other thing I'm looking at is things like TikTok and Instagram and the trouble with those platforms. Not there's a problem with these platforms. They're having trouble because they're, for all intents and purposes, self or unregulated. And we need to begin treating the internet like a utility.
Right.
Where it has a responsibility to the public that goes beyond, we're going to pump so much electricity into your house, you're not going to believe it. The reason we regulate utilities like that is you say, you can't do that. It's got to be controlled, alternate current, direct current, whatever. It's got to be controlled so you don't blow up somebody's house.
Right.
And your houses have to be built in a way so that they can absorb and use the electricity properly. I mean, one of the ways they catch people who are growing marijuana in their homes is now they fly drones over the tops of houses and they read when the houses are unnaturally radiant.
Yeah.
But they also used to check out the electricity draw. They would say, this is a 3-bedroom house. It's drawing whatever, 2,100 kilowatt hours a month. This is a 3-bedroom house. It's drawing 4,800 kilowatt hours a month. Why is there that big draw? And then they go in and do the research and they go, there's a factory up at the attic.
Right.
So, that's a way that regulation works, not only, to enforce the law, to enforce societal norms. The internet has no regulation like that.
No.
None, and it needs to, because it is a public utility. But they're operating like the Wild West now.
Yeah.
It's like, you got the people with the most money, and this is another dangerous thing. When you get, Google owns this and Instagram and that, and it's got all these, and they're all feeding back into Google. Amazon owns such and that, and this and on and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And it all feeds back into Amazon. There's no such thing as competition. You can't have competition anymore, and that's dangerous because it's being established from the outset that there can be no competition. The most money is going to win.
Yeah.
And these companies are set up to where they go. Amazon posted earnings last year of $1.5 million. They earned $1.5 million. Well, the company that owns Amazon earned $1.5 million. So we're going to pay taxes on $1.5 million, $400,000. There you go. Meanwhile, Jeff Bezos is worth $250 billion.
Yeah.
He was worth $100 billion when COVID started, and less than 2 years later, his income had doubled.
Right.
His net worth had doubled because Amazon was the only game in town. You couldn't go shopping, but boy, you could get your mail.
In packages, yeah.
And again, that's using public utilities. And he's saying, we're paying the fee. You are paying the fee, but you're taking, it's a zero-sum game for them. They're taking revenue away from someone else and just, maximizing something else for their profit, as opposed to, the public's good.
Right. And they all suck up to Trump. So
yeah, they all do. That was shame, because I'm a huge Apple fan, and I have a lot of time for Tim Cook. And I was kind of saying, okay, look, he's going to do what he's got to do. But when he gave him a lump of gold or something, and I just went,
yeah,
that's just a shame. That's a shame, because I don't believe, in my heart of hearts, I don't believe Steve Jobs ever would have done that himself, condoned anyone doing it.
Right.
I believe Steve Jobs would have stood apart from all that, and would have been sort of making, he would have called a spade a spade, I don't think he also felt like being the founder of a tech company gives you the right to, have to vent about politics. I think he said, look, I'm going to stay in my lane here.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I have a social responsibility, because these things are, they're social. I'm going to say, hey, look, he sold iPads and he wouldn't let his kids use them. Yeah. And you go, is that hypocritical? You could make an argument that it is.
Right.
But it's also, he's a parent, It's like, if I made cars, I wouldn't let my kids drive them until they were 15, because that's the law.
Yeah. And
I think part of what he was saying is maybe it should be the law that kids can't have a phone until they're 15. The number of parents I see here, take it, 6 months old, 8 months old, the kid's going like this, and you just go, Jesus, because it's quiet for a few minutes.
Yeah, I'm at fault too for doing that. It's but it's, and then you realize it's too late.
Right. it's kind of too late. The cat's out of the bag. But again, that's why it needs to be treated like a utility, because it's hard. But cigarette smoking kind of became less cool. But people are doing vapes now, and you go, look, we had cigarettes and tobacco for 300 years before they came out and adjusted it and made it, what they put in to make the cigarettes last longer or burn more evenly when they're in the ashtray? So you light up another one? Formaldehyde and arsenic. That's poison.
Yeah.
That's poisons. They put that in because it makes them burn faster. Because otherwise you do what they call a roll up over here. You use raw tobacco and roll it up in paper. Yeah. You light it, you hit it, you put it down, it goes out. You pull it up, you light it again, you hit it, you put it down, it goes out. They wanted it to burn so you get another cigarette. So you run out of the pack, so you buy another pack. Yeah. All right, exactly. Yeah. 300 years it took us to understand what tobacco was all about. Vapes have been around for 5 or 10.
Yeah.
And kids are putting an electronic battery-driven device to their mouth and sucking it into their bodies without any concept of what it's doing.
Right.
And the people who are doing it don't really care. Yeah, and it's not adults who are doing it; it's kids who are doing it.
Yeah, because it smells like cotton candy or whatever it is.
Right, and then you're getting what they call bubble lung or something, where and it just I said to my kids, I said, look, I'm not an angry person. If I ever see you with a vape in your hand, you better pray that when I hit it out, your hand doesn't go flying with the vape, because I'm going to hit that thing so
Yeah.
hard,
Right.
you're not going to know, can I curse on your platform?
Absolutely.
You're
Absolutely.
not going to know whether to shoot or whether you're not. That's my dog, Stan. Come here. Yeah, it's my dog.
Okay.
Well, he's going to bark for a little while.
That's okay. I'm sure. I'm surprised mine didn't come up here yet either to be walked in the morning. Yeah, I work in New York City every day, so as soon as I get off the train, just a whiff of freaking
But,
marijuana, it's like
yeah,
it's
it's insane.
I'm all
It's
for it.
ins
I've never tried. I'm all for it
Right.
being
It's like, yeah,
legal, but
you
there's got to be some
exactly.
regulation.
Exactly. It's like anything else. If marijuana, if drugs were treated like the internet, it's entirely possible that if they were, you would have, you'd have a separation of addicts and non-addicts. But
Yeah,
it's the fact that they're trying to control it. They're not trying to regulate it. They're trying to control it,
right.
but they can't control it. When they talk about the porous borders, this administration in particular just blanket says, fentanyl coming from Canada. It's like both pounds of fentanyl that came from Canada
Yeah,
last year. When you've got it all coming through Mexico, coming from China, they don't address the issue. They just say, we're going to use this and say, oh, it's fentanyl coming
yeah,
into the border state of North Dakota or,
right.
Montana or whatever. And you go, it's not coming through there, but okay, do what you
Yeah,
need to do. And so, a lot of times when they're just making stuff up out of whole cloth to suit their narrative and stuff like that, it's why, again, the internet needs to be regulated. Someone's got to say online, and Trump owns Truth Social, so he can say what he wants. You say, yeah, we call bullshit.
yeah,
That's a proven falsehood.
right.
What he's saying is crap. You can't say far left radical, Democrats, because they're not far left and radical, but you're brandishing that brush and painting them all with it.
Yeah,
And you can't do that and be a platform that is known as Truth
yeah,
Social.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you did play the owner of the internet in Doctor Who, though.
I did. Yes, I did. Which was, you see, and that was the definition of sort of an extreme position,
Right.
because I think the guy, if he truly, I mean, what we know now, if someone truly owned the internet, there would literally be no stopping him.
Right.
You wouldn't be able to stop someone who owned the transmission of data around the world. And it just shows you what position the world must have been in at that point, because he was living in a bunker.
Yeah.
He didn't venture to the surface, and you
Right.
think, well, something really bad must have happened. And so he owned what was ARPANET or whatever,
Mhm.
the indestructible connection
Yeah.
across. And yeah, that was I've had so many people. Every once in a while I do a Comic-Con event, and the photographs that sell most
Yeah.
are photographs from the Mummy and from Doctor Who.
Okay.
Most,
Right.
and they all of them. When is Henry Van Statten coming back? I'm going, I
Yeah.
said, you look at something like Excalibur, the John Boorman film,
Yeah.
where at the end of the movie you find Lancelot, who is like a mad monk. He's got long
Yeah.
hair and a beard, and
Right.
he's weaving through these people, killing everybody,
Yeah.
because he realizes that Arthur and the Arthurian legend needs to be saved, and he can still do it,
Yeah.
even though he probably was one of the ones who brought it down. This is his redemption. And I kept thinking that is the way to bring back Van Statten, is
Yeah.
just have him like this mad monk who's doing something, you know, crazily brilliant but dangerous, and they
Yeah.
don't know who is doing it, and then it turns out to be him. That
R-
would be a breathtaking episode.
Oh, absolutely.
It
Yeah.
would have to be a 2 or 3 episode arc where you discover it's him at the end of episode 1,
And then
and
you
then
can
you
do the
see
full
where he's
blown
been
episode
and what
two.
the fallout is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something interesting like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be
I
great.
mean, it's science fiction, so I think they can do anything. So yeah.
Exactly. I mean, and people will sit there and say, yeah, the Trump administration is science fiction too. And you go,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just its basis in reality is so terrifying.
Yeah.
They offered me. I was doing it when I was doing Midnight. Was it Midnight Calling? No, I was doing another movie. And I was offered the Trump in the season 3 or season 4 of the Windsors,
Right.
and I was perfectly happy to do it because a job is a job. But I said to my agent at the time, I said, it's not funny now.
Yeah.
It's just not funny anymore. And I don't know. I don't know. I sort of have an idea of why that is, but it's got nothing to do with the writing. It's just, you can sort of, when something looks to be ridiculous and you lampoon it, that's great. But when it comes true, you can't just keep lampooning it because there's something else to lampoon now.
Right.
If this thing came true, but yeah, I'll never forget that feeling of it's just not funny,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. And I know like he watches everything and every little, criticism of him, he freaks out. Any
Sure.
blowback from your performance? Did you ever hear
None,
anything? Nothing?
surprisingly, none. No,
Okay.
I mean, I think, I don't think the profile was high enough for
Right.
him in his sphere. I
Yeah.
just don't think the profile was high. Now,
Right.
the other possibility is you understand that when it hits very close to the bone and he feels the need to comment on it, he'll say it was a terrible, terrible. Everyone says it was terrible.
Yeah.
So he's putting that out there, how bad it was, how bad
Right.
it was,
Right.
without understanding that him saying it's bad makes people watch it to see how quote
Of
bad
course.
it was.
Yeah.
He doesn't get that not saying anything just makes it disappear.
Yeah.
And so, in a sense, maybe mine was brilliant because he didn't say anything and it's disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'll go with my grave to that one. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
believing
exactly.
that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got to talk about Agent Clay. He's got to be alive, right? Still in Hellboy?
My dad used to say that. He'd say they're making a Hellboy 2, and I'd say, yeah, I saw that. And he said, we never actually see Agent Clay die. And my mind, my imagination is so fertile. I said, great. The guy is in a wheelchair, still operating something, able to move. And I said, and the brilliant thing about it is his hair's gone white, except for the transplant. That's still brown, And I
Right.
was just like,
Yeah.
that would be great.
Yeah.
So it's just like he got a hair transplant and it's calling attention to itself.
Right.
It's just like
Yeah.
he's just got this doll hair transplant that wouldn't change color. But I mean, it's like, yeah, I'd love to bring some of those characters back. They're making the Mummy 4.
Yeah.
I would love nothing more than to go, yeah, why not? You've got Imhotep rises from the dead.
Yeah.
You got to have something. He's calling up all these people who have, died like sort of in the recent past, not 2,000 years ago, but 20 or 30 years
Yeah.
ago. He's calling up all these people because he can. And, like in American Werewolf in London, you just pop up and you're not dead yet. You're not
Right.
completely dead, or
Yeah.
you're dead, but you're not. He's bringing you back to life.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing you make. And it'd be an interesting thing to do. Because on the one hand, those people would have some kind of knowledge of whatever the creature that they're trying to. And I mean, God,
Yeah.
it's not the Mummy 4. Rick and Evelyn
Yeah.
are threatening to divorce one another, and we see the court case. It's going to be about mummies and
Of
shit,
course. Right.
So whatever supernatural thing is threatening the world, the people who are dead, who were in the original mummies, who come back, the only ones who have a window into the world and into the supernatural world.
Yeah.
And so there's plot devices that can, expand. But I think, you have one person who does it, that's great. You have two, and it's like, well, we're getting conflicted here. It's
Yeah.
too many people. They'll find one person and bring them back, and that'll be it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you kind of like surprised about Brendan Fraser's like trajectory, like from like those movies until like The
I was
Whale and what
I
happened?
was only surprised about and not truly surprised because you read about it. Look, Brendan was never ever what you saw on the screen. George of the Jungle, it's a great movie.
Right.
Great. It was a real laugh.
Yeah.
Encino Man, none of those. I mean, to say that was this much of Brendan is an understatement. That was almost it was a testament to the brilliance of his acting.
Right.
And Brendan has one of the biggest hearts of any actor I've ever met. He's very reserved. He's very quiet to himself. and he does his job really, really well. But he's got an enormous, enormous heart. I mean, I'm not close to him. I'm not like friends with him. I did Batgirl with him.
Right.
And when he won the Oscar, I sent him an email. He replied within a day. And I would say he was just a little bit busy, but he still replied within a day. When I did Batgirl, we were working together. One of the first scenes we did was a scene I did with him. It took us about 8 hours to shoot it. We shot wides, we shot close, we shot over the shoulders, we shot all. So we did the scene for about 6 or 8 hours one day. And when they wrapped the scene, they were de-rigging me. And I looked across and I looked at him, and he's standing there grinning like a Cheshire cat looking at me. And I got out of the microphone and I walked over to him and I put my hands on his shoulders and I said, "You have no idea what it means to me to look across the room and see that it's you I'm working with." And he just smiled, because we'd done The Mummy 20 years previously, 23 years previously.
Right.
And it was just to come back around and know what he'd been through, because at that point, he hadn't won the Oscar. And, there was a lot of stuff that was going on with him. He was working on his property after Hurricane Sandy.
Right.
He had a property in Connecticut. He was cutting trees with a power saw. And he cut some wet wood, and it grabbed the power saw and stopped it, and it wrenched his back, which was bad to begin with.
Okay.
But he literally couldn't move, couldn't work, couldn't do it. His wife left him, his family broke up, and there was a lot of things going on with him. There are things I'm not going to address.
Of course not. Yeah.
Yeah. But I was not surprised that he would do something like The Whale, that he could do something like The Whale. I was just gratified that it came to him, because there isn't an actor who's more deserving of that kind of praise isn't the word. It's love. It's love. It's someone who did something for Hollywood. His movies made billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And they made billions because he was playing the lead in them, and even through some questionable choices he made, he never, when I saw him in Batgirl, he still had that kind of sense of fun about it, and that childlike attitude to the work, which is just brilliant.
Right.
Just brilliant.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I have all the time in the world for him. I adore him. I just think he's great.
Right. So what happened with Batgirl? What's the story
I
behind?
have no idea. All I know is what I suspect is it was a banking decision. To a degree, it was a banking decision. They spent money on it, and they didn't want to keep spending money on something that may help define the future of the DC Comics universe.
Right.
In a way they didn't want it to be defined. I think the man who took over Warner wanted to control the way things moved forward, and Batgirl was at a crossroads, and he went, "Let's cut it here and move forward like that, instead of hoping that this works the way we want." I know that the boys were editing one weekend and had like Sunday off and went to log in on Monday and couldn't get into their files. Right. And they put the password in again, and then it was just like shut down on them in less than a day.
Wow.
So yeah.
Did they complete it, or they didn't even
I think it was they finished the movie. Yeah. They were in the midst of edit, but I think a lot of the special effects weren't in place.
Gotcha.
In 5 years or something, it could be one of those movies like, the script for Jacob's Ladder, which goes around the internet and is passed around reverentially and saying, "Oh my God, this is the greatest story. This is the greatest. It's an impossible movie to make." There's a black book of scripts that people are going to make, that people want to make, that people may never be able to make, but it's all brilliant scripts. And I think maybe, Batgirl could be one of those movies that, even though it was made, gets passed around because it'll never see the light of day. And there are people who will show it and say what could have been,
Right. Yeah. It was like,
I think there's an audience for it. I think,
sure.
Really,
absolutely.
Yeah, there are people who would see it as a curiosity, though. That's the problem. You won't be able to appreciate it for what it is. It'll always be what might have been.
Right. It was like the Fantastic Four movie they made in the 90s, where I think they just made it to keep the rights. It was done,
Right,
Roger
right,
Corman, and
right.
it never saw the light of
Exactly.
day until like
No,
bootlegs came out. Yeah.
right. It must have been awful, huh?
I mean, compared to the Marvel movies of these
Sure.
days,
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, it kind of
Yeah.
had a heart, to it, knowing the budget was like $1 million.
Right.
It was totally
If
fine.
Roger Corman made it, it would have a big heart, you know.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly. Among other things, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned Tom Hanks before. I know you worked with him a couple times, but
Mhm.
what was working like on Captain Phillips like?
Well, it was, it was the third movie I did with Paul
Right,
at that point. And I think Paul would, when he would direct other people, he might say, "Oh, you have to, yeah, I would like it to be, so, and you need to sort of feel like, this and try and understand." And with me, he would look at me and say, "This is a Huntress," and I'd go, "Okay,"
yeah,
which was a reference to United 93, and I'd go, "Okay," and I'd do it in a different way because I knew what he wanted,
right,
and so we had the shorthand that worked for us. Um, and no, by that time, you see things with certain actors. Like Tom was a double Oscar winner by that point, and you realize sort of that he's not gonna take a job. He's not gonna take a gig because he just fancies doing a movie.
yeah,
He's taking a job because he thinks it's a worthy script. It's a director he wants to work with. And honestly, it's going to be up for awards
yeah,
because of the way he portrays the character,
right,
you know. Um, and so I think, Captain Phillips, believe it or not, he actually with the goatee and everything, he resembled Phillips, which was kind of remarkable because everything you look at someone online and then you see that and you go, wow, okay, yeah, I
yeah,
can see that. That's
right,
really cool. But yeah, the script was one thing. When we got the script, it was called Maersk, Alabama,
okay,
which was the story of a boat.
right,
By the time it was released, it was called Captain Phillips, which was the story of a man.
yeah,
And that was the big difference for me was, I felt there was a story that could have been told. The crew of the Maersk, Alabama was rescued and they went to the port in, I can't remember where the port was, in, the coast of Africa somewhere. They went to the port where the ship was going to be brought.
okay,
And they literally stayed there for days or weeks waiting for the ship to come to port.
right,
And when I say they stayed there, they would go to the dock and sit in
mm,
chairs and be there waiting for their ship to come in. And that speaks volumes of who these men were. You know, they were waiting for their
mm,
captain to be brought in and their ship to come in. Um, and there was an idea that Phillips could have done some things differently. A lot of people say things
yeah,
like that, and I think the movie, because it's a movie, it's got to
right,
economize, it's got to
right,
romanticize, and so it did. It's an easier story to tell. It's still a brilliant story,
right,
you know. But for me, the breakout performance in that was watching Barkad playing Musa,
yeah,
the head pirate,
yeah, no,
was
it's great.
just extraordinary. There's a point when he would do something and the camera would be on him,
Mhm.
and it was Barry Ackroyd who likes to film like this anyway, and Barkad was doing this, just trying to get a feel of the thing,
Yeah,
just because he'd never acted before.
right,
And Paul started off because Barry said he's got to stay still. He's moving, and I can't find him.
yeah,
And Paul said, "But can you not move?" And he went, "Oh yeah, okay." And so he'd stand there for a little while, and then he'd just go and just gradually start moving again. And gradually, Paul, in his brilliance,
yeah,
said, "Don't worry about it. It looks amazing, And so they just let him do it, and Barry
Right.
would find him, and Barkhead would be moving, and Barry would
Yeah.
just find him in the frame. But that movement was just like, it was like the manifestation of him calculating, and it was a great movie for him,
Yeah.
And he's done a few other things since then. He's making his own stuff now. He lives in Minnesota, so I think he's got a few other things on his plate.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And he's Somali, So
Yeah.
hopefully, and I've read a couple of things from him on Facebook. He's at the forefront of this because
Okay.
you go, this is a lifetime event. This is a for someone, for a Somali from Minnesota, this is a lifetime event.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he'll be busy for a while, unfortunately.
I think he will, but he's a great guy.
Yeah.
He's a great guy.
Right. No, that's good.
Yeah.
How much research do you do of like the events of a real like life movie that you've done? Like
it depends. It
Okay.
depends. There are movies that I sort of I'll look into quite a bit. I don't like to get bogged down in details that may never make it to the screen.
Right.
I would love to say, there wasn't anything about this particular aspect of that event until I said to the director, well, what about this particular aspect of that event? And he looked at me and said, oh my God, that's brilliant. We've got to have a scene about that. That just doesn't happen.
Right.
There are too many other things that are going on.
Yeah.
As an actor, there's a metaphor about relating acting to American football. Sorry, where they say a British actor will run down the field, knowing that the quarterback, his partner, is going to throw the ball somewhere. The quarterback, his partner, is going to throw the ball based on where he's running down the field. In American acting, there's a kind of idea that you can't begin your acting until you have the ball.
Okay.
So how dare that quarterback throw the ball way down there when that's not where I was running.
Right.
That's not where I was running. There's something about it that it's a two-man thing, and it's symbiotic. When one hand moves like this, the other hand does that. If I'm doing this, it stops having structure because this hand won't move. So you got to sit there and wait, and then gradually they move. They can move like that, or they can move in sync, but there's got to be this give and take. And I think sometimes American acting is more about what I'm doing as opposed to what generally is happening and how I move into it. Or that's my perception of it. And I'm not talking about American actors. I'm talking about a style of acting that what I'm doing is of paramount importance. And it almost never is. It's what's going on and how you react to it.
Right.
Because it's about reacting, When I said we mentioned Tom Hanks about an hour ago, I've got to go.
Yeah.
But we mentioned Tom Hanks about an hour ago. Show up on time, know your lines, have an idea. Have an idea is a great thing. But the only reason you would need to have an idea is if there is nothing else going on, or if every other idea has been taxed. Showing up on time is completely within your control.
Right.
Knowing your lines, completely within your control. And those are the two things that are probably the least important.
Mm-hmm.
To me, they're paramount. They're paramount. Having an idea is a good thing. It's like, get a nice piece of cake, you put some whipped cream on there, and then there are sprinkles on top. The idea of the sprinkles.
Yeah.
The cake and the ice cream are the foundation of the dessert. The sprinkles just sort of add something. You don't need the sprinkles. No one would eat a plate of sprinkles. They'd eat the cake or the ice cream or both. Yeah. So having an idea, I think, and I don't know if Tom would agree with this. For me, when I saw that, and I'm not denigrating it, I love having an idea, but it is the thing that makes a great actor special. It is the thing that makes a good actor great. You can be a good actor or a great actor and have no idea. Just show up. Peter Sellers was an actor who just went, and you can't say he had the idea. He would go, well, I'm going to do this. And it was, I don't know if that was an idea or if it was
Right.
just Peter Sellers being Peter Sellers, because he said himself, I don't have a personality. I don't know who Peter Sellers is
Right.
until I express him through these other people. I don't know if that was an idea or if it was self-preservation, do you know? But at any rate, he was a genius.
Right. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think, something practical like showing up on time, not bumping into the furniture, knowing your lines, those are crucial,
Right. Yeah. But I really appreciate your time today, Corey. I can
No,
talk to you for
my
like
pleasure.
another hour and a half.
I can, again, like I said before, I can listen to the sound of my own voice all day.
And a special thanks to Corey for joining me today. I'll have to get him back on. There's so much more I want to talk to him about. If you have a guest suggestion, hit me up on X, formerly Twitter, @theFirstNoel19. Be sure to like the page Reliving My Youth on Facebook. You can go to iTunes, check out all the past episodes we've had. While you're there, please rate and review the show. Don't have iTunes? Not a problem. Show's on SoundCloud, Spotify, Podbean, Amazon Music, basically wherever you find a podcast. A new episode will come out soon. Stay safe, everybody. We'll see you then.